Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Our Life. Today, we're continuing Derek's story because it was a little long and I didn't want to have you guys watch like an hour and a half episode. So, I'm probably going to break it up into three parts. So, without further ado, let's hop in. Delicious.
We're going to the pool as soon
We're
as we
going to the
come
pool
back.
as soon as we come back. Nicholas Joyce was palpable, parroting back Derek's promise from earlier in the day. As the words dawned on him, Derek closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Yep, we are. Get ready. And that was all the approval Nicholas and George needed. They both dashed off to their shared bedroom to get changed. Derek sluggishly opened his eyes, but his tiredness softened when he looked at you.
It's okay.
Practice is done. If you want to stay up here until your moms can come to get you, that's cool. Derek gave a partial shrug and then ran hand through his hair shyly. We don't have to go. We don't have to go swimming again. But I want to hang out with you. I've been having fun. I'm not mad about being here. What, you promised we get to go to the pool again? I'm not gonna let you get outnumbered by George and Nicholas. I don't want to be here by myself. You shook your head at the terrible idea of staring behind. We want to spend time with him. The tip of his ears burned red at your declaration, but he didn't turn away from you. He spoke cheerfully instead. Thanks, me too, Ari. Ugh. It wasn't much longer before the younger kids came running out to rejoin you and Derek. They both wore neon colored swimsuits and had towels wrapped around their shoulders.
Awesome.
Nice job. You even remembered your floaty vest, Nicholas. Derek knelt down, making sure the safety device was properly secured. Nicholas stood tall with his chest out proudly. He didn't fear the scrutinization. I did the straps for him. Perfect, thanks. George brightened as his younger brother had standing back up. Derek shifted his attention to you. Same quick change strategy from earlier? Yeah. You darted off to get changed first. Derek nodded seriously when you returned to take over for him. He reemerged a couple minutes later and diligently went over to the counter to write something down. Curiously, you inched closer. I just gotta leave a note so Dad knows where we are, then we can go. Oh, sounds good. Everything was squared away as Derek was always sure to do. The four of you marched right back out of the apartment for another excursion. By the time the distinct smell of chlorine tickled your nose, the sun had fallen low in the sky. You circled around some nearby lounge chairs and deemed them capable of keeping your things safe. Inspecting the gleaming water, you noticed that George and Nicholas hadn't moved towards the pool yet. Both of the little boys were watching Derek like hawks. You picked up enough this afternoon to know it was because George didn't want to do anything without permission, and Nicholas didn't want to do anything Derek wasn't
I'm
doing.
on it.
Here I go! And Derek himself knew it too. He didn't keep them waiting. Derek offered his brothers an encouraging wave and strode into the pool. You followed him into the water. You ran to beat him. You remained nicely on solid land. We're gonna try and beat him. Breezing past Derek. You caught bits of a gasp and roaring laughter. You couldn't tell what sound belonged to who before you threw yourself off the edge and crashed into the water. Seconds later, you felt the impact of another person piercing the water beside you. Derek stayed under while you went up for air. The other Suarez sons followed, George jumping without any hesitation, but Nicholas sped right to the edge only to come to an abrupt stop. His toe curled around the edge of the pool, and his lips were pressed into a tight frown. Nicholas tipped his head and stared down at the water, clutching his hands together. He was scared to jump. Nicholas would rather the pool come the rest of the way to him, but it wasn't being a good sport. Derek and George popped out of the water with matching wide grins, and the droplets clinged to the tip of their hair. Neither were surprised that they were missing their baby brother. All right. Woo! That was awesome. Nicholas's cry for help came out with a tiny, impatient squeak. He began wiggling in place. Derek chuckled and swam over to the shallow spot. The 6-year-old followed closely, toddling along the edge. When his feet touched the pool's solid bottom, Derek stood up. He kindly held his arms out towards his brother.
This is gonna be
Come on
great.
in, Nico. The water's fine. Trusting him completely, Nicholas let go of his fear. He took a step over the side and walked into his favorite person's hold. Derek embraced Nicholas as he dropped against his chest. Then Derek slowly lowered him closer to the water before he completely let his little brother go. Nicholas bobbed under with a small splash and broke out again in an instant like a buoy. He was bursting at the seams with excitement. Woo! Nicholas made the most of his new floating freedom by doggy paddling around the shallow end. Checking on George, you noticed that he was sticking to the center of the pool. He bounced himself from floor to the surface for air, then pushed back down, do it all over again. He leapt all around in a circle. Derek rested his arm across the pool's edge and took a moment to watch his brothers too. He swam over to Derek and then settled against the wall with him. You closed your eyes and sighed. The water temperature was pleasantly warm against the cool evening air. Derek kept his main focus on his family, though he spared a moment to tilt his head in your direction. A few beads of water trailed from his hairline down to the side of his jaw. Babysitting went as well as you thought, huh? Even better, probably. They were both really good. Neither of them bit me or anything. Perfect.
Honestly.
My brothers are fun. Some of the time. He chuckled at his own joke and ran a damp hand down his face to try and get at least some of the water off. The final rays of the sunlight cast a warm glow on his skin, and the pool sparkled as he finally turned his attention directly towards you. Derek's mouth turned into his usual wonderful smile. I don't know what I'd do without them. I think they're great. You sound like a proud dad. Well, George is good, but Nicholas is trouble with a capital T. I think Nicholas is way cuter than all the other Suarez. You nodded. You shrugged. Great. He smirked at that. Good, because I think so too. George and Nicholas remained engrossed with their own water adventures while you and Derek kept track of them. You were in mid-conversation when the sound of footsteps echoed off the wall surrounding the pool. Derek shot an arm out of the water to wave the newcomer. Dad!
Good evening.
Good evening. Dad! Dad? All the Suarez boys eagerly paddled over to the edge of the pool while their father stood. They moved together in the water with their heads beside each other and their legs kicking out behind them like a pile of seals. Welcome home. Thank you, George. Mr. Suarez's voice was sweet as he observed his children's happy faces. Eventually, he spotted you as well, and he tucked his finger to the edge of his vest with vigor. This pool party today? You know, a party should have the proper food. Let's order some pizza for dinner tonight. Yeah. Laughing with excitement, Nicholas started smacking the palm of his hand against the water surface, making several bursting splashes. George flicked the droplets from the tip of his fingers at Nicholas in retaliation. Chuckling over the scene, Mr. Suarez brought a hand up and held onto his chin and scratched the beard with his thumb. Half cheese, half pepperoni for the first, correct? Yes. Pepperoni! Nicholas threw both arms in the air as he cheered. Mr. Suarez nodded, pleased his little ones still had predictable taste.
Wonderful.
Okay, and meat and veggie supreme for Irene and I on the second. He settled his gaze on Derek and you for the final decision. Suggestions for what the final half should be? Harry, you pick. You floated over closer to Derek as you thought about it. I like all veggies. I don't like meat pizza. I'm weird. Derek gave you a big thumbs up for that. So, in full, half cheese, half pepperoni, half supreme, half all veggie.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, children. I'll put the order in now. I'll come back to let you know when it's ready. But until then, continue to play. Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Dad. Bye. I'll be waiting. Mr. Suarez closed the pool gate behind him, leaving you kids to your fun. Mr. Suarez's absence. Derek took charge again. All right, you heard it. Dad's ordering pizza, so it'll be here in like 30 minutes. So think fast. What's the last thing you want to do before you leave the pool? Nicholas furrowed his brow, thinking as hard as he could. He scrunched up his face together in frustration when nothing came to mind. Meanwhile, George put a hand to his chin, tilted his head to the side, stared up off into space, and considered the question. He left it open for the younger kids. While they were distracted, you made the first strike in a splash fight. Let's go. I like causing a little drama in the pool. To be fair, when me and my brother would play, I was normally the first to splash. So, I don't really change. The younger Suarez boys may have been unsure or overwhelmed by how they wanted to spend the remaining pool time, but you weren't. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. And you subtly angled your position in the water, carefully deciding your plan of attack The corner of your mouth bent and you flung a mighty splash towards Derek. He ended up with a full face of water, and he sputtered before shaking it off with laughter as he regained his composure. Derek brushed a hand down his face again to wipe some droplets away. Ari, I'm sure you are aware of what this means. Derek stared narrow with fierce, amused look of determination. You matched it and gave an added slow nod. I believe I do. This means war. He swiftly sent a shot of water in your direction. Nicholas cackled at your exchange, and then he started to excitedly beat the water surface and send droplets crashing in all directions. You twisted away from their attacks, and the second the water settled, you struck, pushing your hands forward as you sent another big wave crashing towards the brothers. Derek sent splashes with both hands on each of his sides, juggling you and Nicholas. Nicholas pulled water, coming in his hands, and then threw it into the air, the droplets carelessly pouring down on everyone. Nicholas was dangerous in this fight. He was willing to take a hit to get a hit. Out of the four of you, George enacted the best defense strategy. He took a deep breath and held it while he slid under the water. Only his hands remained at the surface as they rapidly splashed in all directions. George's strategy kept you all on your toes in order to avoid the scattered shots. Whenever he came up for air, Derek made sure to be ready to take the shot. It was a grand battle. The four of you thoroughly enjoyed your time at the pool. It flew by so fast that you were surprised when you spotted Mr. Suarez cruising down the water's edge once more. Dinner's here, and even better, Mom's home. Yay! The younger Suarez threw his wet confetti into the air one more time. Even his dad wasn't safe from it. Mr. Suarez took it in stride and wiped his glasses against his vest. Derek was out of breath, but he beamed. Let's go get some food. Yeah. Mr. Suarez led the way to the apartment, and the four of you kids marched with an eager sprint in your step. Despite being wrapped in towels, you dripped water the whole way there. The savory smell of hot cheese and garlic crust was there to greet you when you arrived at the door. You could hear musical words of Miss Suarez, too.
Welcome.
Welcome home. Hi. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Hi, Mom. Feeling a little bit awkward and out of place, you gave a tiny wave. Miss Suarez didn't miss it, and her voice softened as she spoke to you first. Hello, Harry. I hope you had fun today. I did. Well, we had lots of fun.
That's great.
Very good. Miss Suarez then went over to the kitchen where the food was set on the counter, and she popped the boxes open and delightedly glanced over at her husband. This was such a good idea. Thank you. Miss Suarez dipped his head in for a tiny bow. He followed that by gesturing a hand towards the food. Come get dinner, youngest to oldest order. Despite the order given, it was no surprise that George was the one who moved first. You figured Nicholas would wait for Derek even if he didn't have to. George tore off a paper towel from the roll and used it to grab a slice of plain cheese pizza. He hot-footed it back over to the entryway, standing there so he wouldn't bring water any further into the apartment. You can go next, Ari. It'll be easier that way. The food smelled even better up close. You grabbed a slice of cheese, pepperoni, vegetables. That's where it's at. You hurried back to the entryway with your dinner. Derek went next, tiptoeing over with Nicholas at his heels. He grabbed the slice of pepperoni and passed it to Nicholas. Derek then grabbed a slice of pepperoni for himself, but instead going to the entryway, he went to an open space on the floor. You curiously watched as Derek laid his towel on the floor, then sat down on it, crossing his legs. Nicholas plopped down on the towel right next to him and started on one of his pizza crust corners. Let's sit down on the towel. That sounds good. Oh, that's a good idea. You followed Derek's example and laid your towel out on the floor while with cheeks stuffed with pizza. Derek gave you the cheeriest closed-mouthed smile he could. Finally, Mr. and Miss Suarez got their slices of pizza. They stood in the living room in between the spots their sons had taken. So, how did you spend your day while you were out? We did lots of things. In between taking big bites of pizza, the Suarez family started taking turns telling stories about the day. Nicholas recounted the events of the day with the most enthusiasm. Even though they were the same plot points from his brothers, the stories and the ones you witnessed firsthand from his perspective, the events were almost mythically amazing. Storytelling was hungry work, so the slices didn't last long at all. The food was chipped away piece by piece until everyone was stuffed. Nicholas laid down on the floor, limbs stretched out, still wrapped in his towel. He was completely tuckered from the day. Miss Suarez plucked him off the floor and held him under one arm. Bath time. Come on, Junior.
Yes, Dad.
Yes, Dad. Nicholas accepted his fate. His arms hung limply down. George crumpled up his paper towel into a ball and tossed it into the trash. He followed his dad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gregorio. I don't know how to pronounce that. Miss Suarez watched them go with gentle affection in her gaze. She patted her husband's shoulder as he passed by and then strolled over to you and Derek. And thank you for a good day's work. I appreciate both of you take care of Nicholas and George today. Your cheeriness reminded you so much of Derek's. She pointed with her thumb over her shoulder. Dad and I will take it from here. Thanks, Mom. You could see the wave of relief wash over him as clearly as the actual water you had just swam in. I'll keep an ear out for the phone. Pamela said she'd call when they were on their way here to get Airy. Okay. After that, Miss Suarez excused herself to go help get George and Nicholas ready for bedtime. When she disappeared down the hall, Derek leaned back, the palms of hands. He lazily rolled his head in your direction.
Hey.
We can get dressed again, and then would you want to hang out in my room until your moms get here? It sounds like a plan to me. You can get changed first. He stretched his legs out on the floor while you stood up. You could feel a slight ache in your muscles from today's activities. It wasn't bad. You'd given your all during your babysitting adventure. Gathering your things in your arms, you left to get changed. It wasn't long before you and Derek went over to his room for some siblingless free time. Derek opened his bedroom door and gestured for you to lead the way. You went in while he followed, close behind, shutting the door once more. Him and I, same thing. The purple. What can you see in my cam? You can't see shit. But behind my bed, there is a purple like banner. I forget what they're called. For my team, I watch esports, and it's the LA Gladiators. Derek opened his bedroom door and gestured for you to lead the way. You went in while he followed close behind, shutting the door once more. Your eyes widened as you scanned the small space. Usually you were outside when you hung out with Derek, so this was the first time that you'd been inside his room. Within reach of his neatly made bed was a bookshelf filled with novels. Various scattered soccer balls, footballs stuck out around the books and furniture. Things were arranged and organized with the same care Derek put into most things he did. If there was more time, you were sure that there was a ton more trinkets and treasures to spot here. Like a game of I Spy. It wasn't big, but Derek made the most of his small piece of the world. Your room is cool. There's a lot of footballs and soccer balls in here. Are you sure you have enough soccer balls and footballs? He felt nervous being here. This is amazing. He quietly looked around. Your room is so cool, man.
Really?
The aesthetic pleasantness is just... I'm sorry. That's what I like. Really. Bashful, Derek scratched the side of his neck. He cheerfully watched you look over his things until it clicked. Whoa, we've never hung out in my room before, huh? Nope. It's the first time. That's kind of weird to think about.
Sorry.
But anyway, sorry I don't have any chairs in here. You can sit on my bed if you want. Don't worry, there's a ton of places to sit in the living room, so this balances things out. Derek chuckled at that. Still, he felt a bit awkward and rubbed the back of his neck. Thanks for offering your bed, though. You stayed standing. You sat on the edge of his mattress. We're gonna sit. Leave some room for him, though. After the busy day you had, it was without a doubt nice to relax on something soft. Derek's expression brightened since you took him up on the offer. Derek crossed over the foot of his bed and sat there on the end of it, his jaw stretched open in a huge yawn that quickly covered with his hand.
Good job, team.
Phew, we're finally done. There was no missing the proud satisfaction burning in his green eyes, but you could also consequently see the places where he was wilting. Sometimes you kind of worry about how he threw himself wholeheartedly into things all the time. It was nice spending the day babysitting. How often do you babysit? I'm glad it's over. I hope I was at least helpful today. Derek, don't ask me to watch those kids again, you teased. He nodded without words. Let's ask him how often. Well, his gaze shifted away from you. Derek pinched the blanket under his fingers while he thought about your question. Pretty often, I guess. Not all the time. Oh. Derek stretched his arms high in the air and yawned again. His eyelids drooped as he turned towards you. Gradually, the carefree warmth faded from his demeanor. His face fell into a quiet frown when his hands returned to his
You
lap.
have to.
You don't have to do it again, Ari. Whether it's a good time or a bad time, it's just a lot of time, and you have your own things to deal with. Your brows bent at that, tilting your head. You couldn't help but think about how much Derek's day went to his brothers. It definitely didn't seem to match how things were with your sister and you. But then, as if summoned by your thoughts about him, the bedroom door creaked open just enough to let a giggling Nicholas slip in. He threw his hands in the air. I'm dressed! With a loud thud, the door swung fully open and George marched in. With an extremely annoyed scowl, he put his hands on his hips. Nicholas, we're playing in the living room, not Derek's room. George reached for his younger brother, but Nicholas scurried up onto the bed. He warily peeked at George from behind Derek's shoulder. Derek notably didn't say a single word, nor did he appear surprised about the intrusion at all. The only movement he made was a light pat on the mess of hair on Nicholas's head like usual. What wasn't usual was the distant look on his face. He accepted the reality at hand, but did not welcome it. Mr. and Mrs. Suarez crowded into the room next. Excuse us. Sorry, Derek. He slipped away in a flash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No more.
Come on, Nicholas. Let Derek and Ari have some peace. The younger Suarez stubbornly clung onto Derek's arm, his cheeks puffed out angrily. Nicholas, go hang out with Mom and Dad. Don't you want to see them too? They missed you today. Don't want to see Mom and Dad too? Come on, Derek. Nicholas loosened his grip as he shifted to get a better look at his big brother. Derek sighed spiritlessly. I do, but I have a friend over right now. I'll spend time with Mom and Dad and you later. Nicholas bent forward and grasped Derek's pant leg. He brought out the big guns and stared up at him with the most pitiful eyes, matching pout. You know, Derek does what he's supposed to. You can be like that now, Nicholas. Don't be sad. It's been a happy day. Well, I'm not surprised this happened. You sank down feeling awkward about the decision. Let's bring Derek into this. All the focus shifted over to you in surprise, but the one you were focused on was the youngest Suarez. Silently, he met your stare, and you could tell that he was mulling over your words. I know you can do it. For a second, you had a glimmer of hope that you could fix things for Derek, but as the moments passed, Nicholas still didn't budge from his spot. His grasp only tightened.
End of discussion.
Nicholas, we're ready for reading a story right now. Nicholas angrily shook his head as she advanced across the room. She unapologically peeled her smallest child off Derek. The younger boy let out a high-pitched whine for the entire extraction. George frowned sympathetically over the confrontation while Derek winced at the noise. When the deed was done, the middle son followed his mom out of the room. You could still hear Nicholas' piercing cry as he was carried away. I'm very sorry about the interruption. Continue as you were. None of us were even here. He gave the both of you an encouraging smile before carefully shutting the door again. It was finally silent. Derek kept an eye out until he honestly believed that there wouldn't immediately be another sibling disaster. When he deemed it safe, he let out a quick sigh and attempted to choke back his harsh groan. Derek flopped against the mattress with another huff, stretched into his arms to the side. His arms twitched and his fingers curled into fists. There's never any privacy here. How am I still having to deal with things even after spending almost the whole day with them? You held your tongue, waiting patiently for him to get it all out. Derek muttering grievances under his breath with a harsh glare into the ceiling for a good minute and screwed his mouth shut. I'm sorry, Derek. I think you've done a really good job with everything. It's definitely rough, and I thought Elizabeth could be difficult to deal with. At least your brothers don't think that the boss like Elizabeth didn't know what to say. It's definitely rough is a good one. Like, we don't want to say I'm sorry, because, I mean, it's family. You just have to deal with family. And I thought Elizabeth could be difficult to deal with. Let's not try to sympathize. Let's just be like, it's rough, buddy. Zuko moment. The bulk of his anger punched out of him with another sigh. Derek rolled his head in your direction and cracked a weak smile. You tried to match it, wishing there was something more that you could do. A tiny laugh shook him. It really is. Even in his breath, Derek folded his arms across his chest and squeezed his eyelids shut. You could tell by the tension in his face that he was still bothered. He was thinking hard, searching for something. Ooh, this is a long one, guys. Ooh, it's because we're actually playing a dating route instead of just going through it like we do with Cove. Love this for us.
Man.
I can make this work. His low mumble was followed by a pause that had you intrigued. And then he jumped forward so that he was sitting upright again. The grin you're so used to seeing was back in full force. Hey, Ray, want to go back to the pool? Nobody's going to be there this late, and my bros are not going to be able to leave the house. We don't have to get in or even change clothes, I think. It'd just be kind of nice place to talk and that sort of thing. Avoiding your gaze, Derek nervously rubbed the back of his head. You could tell that he was trying his hardest to be nonchalant, but wasn't exactly succeeding. I like the way you think. All right. Derek leapt up to his feet and turned, holding a hand out for you to take. Chuckling, you got up on your own. We're going to take his hand. We're going to take it. Derek squeezed you back and helped pull you up to your feet. Let's go. The door slowly creaked open as Derek peeked out, double-checking that the coast was actually clear. Gave you a thumbs up. I don't see Nicholas. I think we're good. You returned his thumbs up silently, hoping that this was in the calm before the storm. Derek led you into the living room where you found his dad, George, sitting on the couch together. Hello. Mom has Nicholas in his room and trapped in another exciting session of story time. Good. Ari and I were going to go down to the pool area and hang out. Is that okay?
Of course.
Of course. He chuckled, knowing exactly what Derek was trying to accomplish. George was perfectly happy where he was with his dad, so he waved goodbye to you both. Don't keep Ari out too late. I won't. Thanks, Dad. Derek whispered with complete confidence. You gave your appreciation in an equally hushed tone. Thank you, Mr. Suarez. The last thing either of you wanted was to alert the younger Suarez that anything fun was happening without his knowledge, so you both silently slipped out of the apartment. Once you were free from the condo walls, Derek's excitement was palpable. I don't know that word. I know the word, but I can't think of how it's pronounced right now. You picked up the pace and raced to the pool gate. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, remember to hit like and subscribe so you can come back and see the next episode. Next time this post, it should be the last part of this story, so I hope you'll come back to see it. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.